Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm so glad you're joining us because we are tackling a question that, honestly, it's pretty baffling when you really think about it.
Oh, it really is. It completely defies logic sometimes.
Right. Like, why do some entrepreneurs who literally have everything, unlimited access to capital, the perfect connections, top-tier courses, and impeccable timing, why do they still, stall out?
It's the ultimate puzzle. I mean, you see these individuals spend months, sometimes years, hustling just to get in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
And they finally land those resources they thought they desperately needed. The math on paper says they should be skyrocketing, but in reality, nothing is moving.
And that exact tension is the core of our deep dive today. We're looking at a deeply insightful piece by Dennis M. Bagori.
Yes, a really fascinating article.
Right. He's a senior pastor, a Maxwell Leadership Certified coach, and the founder of the Affirm Your Greatness movement. And his article, The Identity Gap, isolates this exact phenomenon.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because we are so conditioned to believe that success is just, this simple equation. Resources plus effort equals success.
Which makes sense on the surface.
Right. But when the resources are undeniably there and the person is seemingly trying, but they remain stuck right below their actual capacity, well, we have to look for a different diagnostic tool.
And Maguri argues that high-potential leaders don't usually stall out because of a strategy problem. They stall because of an internal misalignment between their self-perception and their actual potential.
Yeah, and what's so powerful about his approach is how it shifts our entire focus. I mean, we're so used to looking outward, right? Asking, what tool am I missing? Who else do I need to meet?
Constantly looking for the next external fix.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Maguri turns that completely inward. He forces us to ask, where is my internal alignment off?
Which is a way harder question to answer.
Much harder, because it demands we look at how we perceive our own right to operate in the spaces we've literally fought to enter.
Okay, let's unpack this because we are living in an era of unprecedented, almost overwhelming access.
Oh, absolutely.
It has literally never been easier to get your hands on the resources you need to build something. And Maguri categorizes these perfectly into four things: courses, communities, capital, and connections.
The big four.
Yeah. You can go online right now, download a master class from a billionaire, join a community of high-level founders, or just pitch a venture firm via a cold email.
Which is amazing, but also the trap.
Right. Because counterintuitively, having all those resources often leads to complete paralysis.
And that paralysis happens because we misunderstand what access actually provides. We tend to, we conflate access with authorization.
Well, that's a key distinction.
They are not the same thing at all. What the text points out is that access alone does not produce movement. There is this massive, usually hidden psychological difference between being exposed to an opportunity and feeling authorized to operate within it.
Wait, can you break that down a bit more?
Sure. So you can physically be in the boardroom. You can have the startup capital sitting right there in your business checking account. That is exposure.
Right.
But if your internal identity hasn't updated to match that new reality, you won't feel like you possess the inherent authority to actually pull the trigger on major decisions.
It's like, I love this way of thinking about it. It's like having the keys to a high-end sports car, but mentally, you still only hold a learner's permit.
Oh, that is exactly it.
Yes.
Like the machine is yours, the engine is purring, the road is wide open, but your brain is screaming, I am not legally or fundamentally qualified to drive this thing.
Right.
So you just, sit parked in the driveway.
The sports car is the access, and your current identity is that learner's permit. As long as you perceive yourself as a novice or an outsider or someone who is, just lucky to be here, you will never take that car out on the highway.
You'll just sit there.
You might sit in the driveway and rev the engine a few times, maybe tinker with the dashboard to feel like you're doing something productive, checking your emails in the driver's seat.
Exactly. But you won't actually put it in gear because your brain constantly seeks equilibrium. If your identity says, I am a beginner, you will actively reject high-level execution just to maintain that internal consistency.
I want you, the listener, to really think about your own recent experiences for a second. Have you joined a powerful ecosystem or like an elite mastermind recently where you still hesitated to execute?
Oh, that's a great question.
You paid for the premium course, you got the introduction to the investor, and then you just watched. You lurked in the forums, You took endless notes but didn't pitch. You basically just sat in the sports car in the driveway, telling yourself that reading the manual one more time was progress.
We do that all the time. We
hmm
constantly mistake proximity to success for actual execution.
Yeah, we really do.
We tell ourselves we are being productive because we are, quote, gathering information. But Mimbagori argues that this happens because you will only execute at the level you believe you belong. If your internal narrative tells you that you belong in the audience, well, you'll take diligent notes. If your identity says you belong on the stage, you will speak. The hesitation has literally nothing to do with a lack of resources. It has everything to do with the identity you carry into the room.
So, if a lack of resources isn't stopping us, what does this hesitation actually look like day to day? So we have this Hollywood image of business failure.
Yeah, the big dramatic explosion.
Yeah, the company goes bankrupt, servers crash, investors are screaming at you. But Magori says that entrepreneurs trapped in this identity gap rarely fail loudly. Instead, they stall quietly.
And that phrase, stall quietly, is incredibly perceptive because it rarely registers as a failure to the outside world. It just looks like you're being highly careful or methodical.
Feels responsible.
Exactly. But the text outlines some very subtle, really insidious symptoms of this gap. It shows up as overthinking remarkably simple decisions. It manifests as inconsistency in execution, starting really strong but fading out when the stakes get higher.
Playing small in big rooms.
Yes. And the most common symptom of all, delaying action until confidence feels complete.
Okay, but I want to push back on that a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
Delaying action until you're confident or taking time to really think through a decision, isn't that just good business? I mean, surely we shouldn't throw caution to the wind and launch without a plan. How do we know when healthy preparation crosses the line and turns into this silent self-sabotage?
That is the exact question you have to ask to diagnose the issue, and the boundary lies in the finish line.
What do you mean?
Healthy preparation has a distinct, measurable endpoint. You research the market, you build the prototype, you hit the predetermined metric, and then boom, you launch.
Okay.
Silent self-sabotage, on the other hand, is preparation without end. The trap, as Ubagori clarifies, is seeing yourself perpetually as someone who is just figuring it out.
Oh, that's so interesting. So the identity of the student actually becomes a hiding place.
Exactly. When your core identity is I'm a student or I'm still learning the ropes, you will naturally resist showing up as a leader who builds and scales.
Because a leader has to actually step up.
Right. A leader makes a call, absorbs the risk, and deals with the fallout. A student simply asks for an extension or, more reading material. If you are always figuring it out, your brain will always find one more variable to figure out before you take the leap.
Which brings us to how Mogori connects this psychological stalling to faith-based principles.
Yes, this is a brilliant part of the text.
What's fascinating here is he brings in Proverbs 23:7, which states, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." Now, we've heard that quote in 1,000 motivational speeches, but in this context, it's not just a platitude. It's describing a rigid cognitive ceiling.
Right, he uses that scripture to explain the actual mechanics of human behavior. Your internal identity sets an absolute limit on your external results.
It's hardwired.
Totally hardwired. You cannot consistently perform in a way that violates how you fundamentally see yourself. The market isn't the ceiling. The algorithm isn't the ceiling. The thought in your heart about who you are, that is the ceiling.
Wow.
If you think you are an imposter, your actions will eventually align to prove that true, usually by just stalling out.
Okay, so we have the diagnosis. We see how the identity gap causes us to stall quietly.
Yep.
Let's look at a concrete example of this in practice so we can see how someone actually breaks out of it.
Has to do it.
Let's build a hypothetical scenario right from the source material. Imagine an entrepreneur who has just been accepted into a highly exclusive, very powerful mastermind group.
A very intimidating room.
Right. They paid the massive entry fee. They're sitting at the table with industry titans. They have the capital ready to deploy.
So the stage is perfectly set. Now, let's watch how this plays out if they are making what we can call resource-based decisions.
Which means they are operating from within the identity gap.
Exactly. They are physically in the room, but they still feel like they only hold that learner's permit.
So in this resource-based mindset, they get to the table and they immediately shrink.
They hide.
Yeah. Their first instinct is to turn to everyone else and ask, what should I do next? They completely outsource their authority. They listen to every speaker. They fill up 3 entire notebooks. They gather massive amounts of new
It's
information.
prep, no action.
And then, when a lucrative partnership opportunity arises right in front of them, they stall. They say, let me run some more models. Let me read this other book on partnerships first. In this high-powered environment, they actually regress into the perpetual student.
Because their identity hasn't shifted to match the room. They have the access, but they just don't feel authorized to wield it.
Right.
Now, let's rewind and look at the exact same scenario, the exact same entrepreneur. But this time, they're making an identity-based decision.
This is where the shift happens. So they sit at that table. They probably still feel the imposter syndrome creeping in, but they recognize the misalignment between their current identity and their new assignment.
They see the gap.
Exactly. Instead of asking the room, what should I do next? They stop. They change the question internally. They ask, who must I become to lead at this level?
And that is the critical pivot. It is a fundamental shift from doing to becoming. They realize that no amount of external advice can compensate for a lack of internal authority.
And because they ask that question, their behavior changes instantly. When the partnership opportunity arises, they don't ask to run more models.
No, they jump in.
They initiate the deal, they pitch the idea, they execute before they feel fully ready, because they know that the leader they need to become is the kind of person who makes the call.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Magori introduces another profound faith-based principle to illustrate this dynamic. He points to Luke 12:48, to whom much is given, much will be required.
A very famous verse.
Right. And traditionally, that verse is interpreted as a warning about obligation or responsibility, meaning, if you have wealth, you must give to charity.
Sure, that's how I've always heard it.
But applied to the identity gap, it takes on a deeply structural meaning.
How so? Like, break that down for us.
The challenge for our entrepreneur in the mastermind isn't about receiving more access. They have already been given much, right?
Right.
The actual requirement, the thing being demanded of them by the universe, by the market, by their faith, is to become the kind of person who can actually carry the weight of that access.
Oh, I see. It's like trying to run an enterprise-level software program on a decade-old operating system.
Yes. Perfect analogy.
The hardware might have the memory, the data is all downloaded, but the OS just crashes when you try to open the program.
Yeah.
The requirement isn't to get more data. The requirement is to upgrade your internal operating system to handle the processing load of what you've already been given.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. You have to expand the internal operating system before you can effectively execute the external commands.
Otherwise, you just crash.
Exactly.
Right.
If you don't upgrade the OS, the opportunity will just crash the system. You will unconsciously sabotage the opportunity just to get your circumstances back down to a level that your current operating system can comfortably process.
So we see the difference between the resource-based stall and the identity-based action. But let's get relentlessly practical here.
Yeah, let's do it.
How do we actually code this new operating system? What are the daily habits required to become this new version of ourselves? Because, it's really easy to sit here and say, step into your new identity.
Yeah.
But it's entirely different to wake up on a Tuesday morning to a full inbox feeling completely overwhelmed and actually live it out.
Absolutely. And this is where Memogori's text shifts from theory straight into application. He highlights a necessary non-negotiable transition. You have to stop seeking information and start taking bold action. The core philosophy driving this is that identity is not proven before action. It is formed through action.
Wait, say that again. Formed through action.
Yes. You do not sit in your office meditating until you finally feel like a decisive CEO and then start the business. You start acting decisively, and through the friction of those very actions, the CEO identity is actually forged.
The text gives us 3 very specific, actionable steps to force this shift. Let's walk through them. Number 1, make decisions faster.
This directly attacks that quiet stalling we discussed earlier.
Right.
Think about the neural feedback loop happening when you drag out a decision. You are reinforcing the identity of someone who is unsure, someone who doesn't trust their own judgment.
You're practicing hesitation.
Exactly. By artificially forcing yourself to make decisions faster, even small ones, you are signaling to your own brain that you are an authority. You are proving to yourself that you are authorized to make the call and deal with whatever happens next.
Okay, number 2, show up before you feel ready.
This dismantles the illusion that complete confidence is a prerequisite for action. If you wait until you feel 100% ready, you have waited too long.
The opportunity is already gone.
It has likely passed, yes. Growth only happens in the discomfort of being slightly underqualified for the room you just stepped into. You have to normalize the feeling of internal inadequacy as a sign of growth, not a signal to retreat.
Here's where it gets really interesting with step number 3. Execute as the version of you that you are growing into.
This is the best part.
I think about this like wearing a tailored suit or a coat that is exactly one size too big.
Oh, I like that.
You put it on, and immediately the sleeves hang a little long. The shoulders are just a bit too wide. You feel a bit ridiculous. You might look in the mirror and think, who am I trying to kid? This isn't me.
The imposter syndrome kicks in immediately.
Right. But you don't take the coat off. You walk out the door anyway.
Right.
And as you wear it day in and day out, as you do the work, lift the weight, and make the decisions, your physical shoulders actually broaden.
You grow into it.
You literally grow into the fabric through your daily actions. Soon enough, you look in the mirror, and the coat fits perfectly. It was never about finding a coat that fit your old self. It was about choosing the coat of your future self and growing into it.
And to anchor this practically, Magori brings in one final scripture, James 1:22, which says, "Be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving yourselves."
Mm.
The message here is that acquiring information without application is literally a form of self-deception.
Because it feels like progress.
Exactly. You trick yourself into thinking you are moving forward because you are reading the books, taking the courses, attending the masterminds.
Sitting in the sports car.
Right. But Magori explains that growth always follows obedience. It follows the action. Your next level of capacity strictly requires your next yes. It requires you to do the thing, not just gather more data about the thing. You cannot think your way into a new identity. You have to act your way into it. You make the fast decision, you show up unready, you wear the oversized coat, and you take the action. That is the only mechanism that closes the gap.
So what does this all mean for you right now? If there is one core takeaway from Dennis and Bagori's insights, it is this. The gap keeping you from your ultimate potential isn't outside of you.
Not at all.
It's not a lack of funding. It's not a missing contact. It's not a secret strategy you haven't learned yet. The gap is entirely within you. It is the space between who you currently see yourself as and who you are required to be to handle the opportunities already in front of you.
That's the real work.
True growth isn't about hoarding more access. It is about stewarding the access you already have by aligning who you are with who you are called to become.
It is the ultimate shift from acquiring to becoming. And when that internal alignment clicks into place, the text assures us that movement becomes inevitable. You won't have to force it. The sports car will finally leave the driveway because the driver finally realizes they own the road.
To leave you with a final thought today, something to really examine as you go about the rest of your week. If identity is truly formed through action and not prior to it, take a hard, honest look at your calendar for the last week.
Ooh, that's a tough mirror.
Based purely on your daily actions, the emails you sent, the decisions you delayed, the meetings you spoke up in or stayed quiet, and what identity are you currently building? Are your habits actively forging the identity of someone who is still perpetually figuring it out, or are your actions building the identity of someone who has already decided to lead? Take that question with you, step out of the identity gap, and take that bold action you've been putting off. Thanks for diving deep with us today.